Rila had stopped counting the days a long time ago. The research station drifted in silence around a brown dwarf that gave no warmth. Once this place held 47 researchers. Now it held one. Rila moved through the dark corridors with careful steps, her thin body wrapped in layers of old blankets. The environmental systems had failed months ago. She survived by sealing herself into 3 small rooms and breathing recycled air that tasted of rust and despair. She was Velani, her species valued order, efficiency, and most of all, political convenience. When the government changed back home, the research here became an embarrassment. The funding stopped. The evacuation ship that was promised never arrived. Rila remembered standing at the communication terminal, listening to the final message from her homeworld. Operations terminated, personnel reassignment pending, stand by for transport. She had stood by, she was still standing by 4 cycles later. The others had died one by one, some from illness when the medical supplies ran out, some from despair when hope became too heavy to carry. A few had fought over the remaining food in those early desperate months. Rila survived because she was methodical. She rationed everything. She talked to herself to stay sane. She refused to let the silence win. Today she performed her usual routine: check the water recycler, check the emergency power cell, check the sensors. The sensors had been dead for a year, but she checked them anyway. Routine was the only thing keeping her mind together. The sensor panel flickered. Rila froze. She stared at the ancient equipment, certain her eyes were failing. But the flicker came again, and then a faint signal appeared on the cracked display. Something was out there, something was moving through the void. Her hands trembled as she adjusted the settings. The signal was crude and strange, nothing like Velani technology. The energy signature was almost primitive by galactic standards, loud and unrefined. Her database had no match for it. It could be debris, it could be a malfunction, it could be pirates who would kill her faster than the cold. But it could also be salvation. Rila looked at the communication array. It had been dead for 3 cycles, but she had been an engineer before she was a survivor. She had kept the emergency beacon functional, nursing it with stolen power from non-essential systems. 1 burst. She had enough power for 1 burst on the old emergency frequency. She should not hope. Hope had killed more of her colleagues than starvation. Every time a scheduled transport failed to arrive, every time the communication channel stayed silent, hope had carved pieces from their souls until nothing remained. But Rila was also stubborn. It was the only quality she had left. She activated the beacon. The pulse went out into the void, a desperate cry in a language that predated modern encryption. Anyone could hear it. Anything could answer. Rila watched the sensor display and waited for the unknown signal to continue on its path, ignoring her the way her own people had ignored her. The signal changed course. Rila's breath caught. She pressed her face close to the display, her heart pounding in her chest. The crude vessel was turning. It was heading directly toward the station. Someone had heard her, someone was coming. She did not know whether to feel terror or joy. The Velani had left her here to die quietly, erased from records, forgotten by a government that found her existence inconvenient. Why would strangers be any different? Why would anyone cross the void for someone with nothing to offer? But the signal kept coming, steady and determined. Rila sank to the floor, her back against the cold wall. She wrapped her arms around her knees and watched the display. The unknown vessel would arrive within hours. She did not know what manner of beings crewed it. She did not know if they came as rescuers or scavengers. She only knew that for the first time in 4 cycles, the silence had been broken. Someone had answered. The signal resolved into clearer data as it approached. The vessel was small by galactic standards, built for endurance rather than speed. Its hull configuration matched nothing in the Velani archives, but one detail caught Rila's attention. The ship was broadcasting an identification signal in basic trade language. 3 simple words that meant nothing to most species in the galaxy, but everything to someone who had been forgotten. Rescue vessel responding. Rila read the words again and again. She did not know what a human was. The name was unfamiliar, absent from her education and her research. But they had heard her, they had turned their ship, they were coming. She pulled herself to her feet and began to prepare. There was little to do. The docking systems were dead, the airlocks barely functioned. But she would be ready. After 4 cycles of darkness, someone had shattered the silence. Whatever came next, she would face it standing. The void had tried to claim her, it had taken her colleagues, her hope, her faith in her own people. But it had not taken her life, and now something new was approaching, something unknown and strange. Rila watched the sensors and waited for the humans to arrive. The argument aboard the Wayward Dawn lasted less than 3 minutes. "Could be a trap," said Ogun, his massive arms crossed over his chest. "Pirates use distress signals all the time out here." "Could be," Captain Noor agreed. She studied the sensor readings with calm eyes. "But that signal is old tech, emergency frequency from before the current era. Nobody uses that unless they have nothing else." Yuki leaned forward at her console. "The signature matches a Velani research station, supposed to be decommissioned 17 cycles ago. Records say all personnel were evacuated." "Records lie," Daishi muttered from the engineering station. Nor made her decision. "We answer, that is who we are, set course." The Wayward Dawn was not a pretty ship. She was old, patched together from salvage and stubbornness, held together by Daishi's constant repairs and the crew's refusal to let her die. But she was reliable. She had carried them through the dangerous fringes of mapped space for 12 years, answering calls that others ignored. They reached the station in 6 hours. What they found made even Ogun fall silent. The station hung in the darkness like a corpse. No lights, no power signatures except for a faint emergency beacon. The structure showed years of neglect, pitted by micrometeorites and scarred by thermal stress. Nobody had maintained this place for a very long time. "Life signs," Priya announced from the medical station. Her voice was soft with disbelief. "One, just one, barely registering." 17 cycles," Yuki whispered. "Someone survived out here for 17 cycles." Captain Noor stood. "Ogun, Yuki, suit up. We breach the airlock manually. Priya, prepare the medical bay. Daishi, keep us stable. Whoever is in there, we bring them out." The airlock breach took 20 minutes of careful work. The station's systems were completely dead. Ogun had to cut through the outer door with a plasma torch while Yuki monitored for structural collapse. When they finally entered, the darkness swallowed their helmet lights. The interior was a tomb. Personal belongings scattered on the floor, abandoned where they fell. Emergency seals blocked most corridors. The air was thin and stale, barely breathable. Everything spoke of desperate survival measures and slow decline. "This way," Yuki said, following her scanner toward the life sign. They found a sealed chamber at the end of a narrow corridor. Through the cracked viewport, they saw a figure huddled against the far wall, small, thin, wrapped in layers of fabric, watching them with enormous eyes that reflected their lights. Ogun removed his helmet. It was a risk. The air was bad, but he needed her to see his face to understand they meant no harm. He held up his empty hands and spoke slowly. "We heard you, we came, you are safe now." The translation device on his collar rendered his words in basic trade language. The alien woman stared at him. She was Velani, he realized, recognizing the species from old files, tall and slender with pale blue skin and dark eyes. She looked like she had not eaten properly in months. "You came," she said, her voice cracked from disuse. "You actually came." "Of course we came," Yuki said gently. "Can we open this door?" The Velani woman fumbled with the emergency release. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely grip the lever. When the door finally opened, she did not step through, she collapsed. Ogun caught her before she hit the ground. She weighed almost nothing. He could feel her bones through the layers of fabric. This woman had been starving, freezing, and alone for years, and she had survived. The strength that took was beyond anything he could imagine. "We need to move," Yuki said. "This station is falling apart." They carried her back through the dead corridors, past the scattered remnants of lives that had ended in this forgotten place. When they reached the Wayward Dawn, Priya was waiting with medical equipment ready. "Severe malnutrition," Priya reported as she worked. "Dehydration, stress damage to multiple organs, she should be dead." "But she is not," Captain Noor said quietly. The Velani woman drifted in and out of consciousness as Priya stabilized her. At one point her eyes opened and she looked directly at Noor. "Why?" she asked, her voice was barely a whisper. "Why did you come? There is nothing here of value." Noor crouched beside her. "You called, that was enough." The Velani woman's eyes filled with tears. She tried to speak again but could not find the words. Priya administered a sedative and she slipped into healing sleep. The crew stood in silence for a long moment. 17 cycles, Daisy said finally. Her own people left her here for 17 cycles. We find out who did this, Noor said. Her voice was calm but her eyes were hard. We find out why and we make sure someone answers for it. The wayward Dawn pulled away from the dying station and set course for the nearest safe port. Behind them the void reclaimed its silence. But they carried something with them now, a survivor, a witness, a wrong that demanded to be made right. Rila woke to the smell of something warm. She lay still for a long moment, convinced she was dreaming. For 4 cycles she had woken to cold and silence and the taste of recycled air, but now there was warmth against her skin and a soft hum of engines and something that smelled like food. She opened her eyes. The room was small but clean. Medical equipment surrounded her bed, displaying readings she did not understand. A blanket covered her body, softer than anything she had touched in years, and sitting in a chair nearby, watching her with patient eyes, was the human woman who had spoken to her before. "You are awake," Captain Noor said. "Good, how do you feel?" Rila tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Her body protested every movement, but the pain felt different now. It was the pain of healing rather than the pain of dying. "Confused," she admitted. "I keep expecting to wake up back on the station." "That will pass." Noor handed her a cup of warm liquid. "Drink, Priya says you need fluids." The liquid was sweet and strange and wonderful. Rila drank slowly, savoring every drop. When the cup was empty, she looked at the human woman with questions she did not know how to ask. 3 weeks to the nearest station," Noor said, answering the unspoken. "You have time to recover. You are safe here." Safe, the word felt foreign in Rila's mind. Over the following days, she began to understand these strange beings who had crossed the void to answer her call. Daisy brought her food he had modified for her biology. He did not speak much, but he checked on her regularly, adjusting the environmental controls to match her comfort. When she asked why he bothered, he looked at her with genuine confusion. "You need to eat," he said, as if that explained everything. Yuki visited often, full of questions about Velani culture and eager to share stories about Earth. She described a world of blue oceans and green forests, of wars that nearly ended their species and determination that carried them to the stars. "We almost destroyed ourselves many times," Yuki said cheerfully, "but we kept going. Humans are stubborn like that." Priya examined her daily with gentle hands and gentler words. She found damage that would take months to heal and psychological scars that might never fade, but she did not judge, she did not lecture, she simply treated. "You survived something terrible," Priya told her. "Needing help after that is not weakness, it is wisdom." Agun was quiet and massive and surprisingly kind. One night Rila could not sleep. She wandered the ship and found him in the cargo bay, lifting heavy containers with methodical patience. He saw her watching and nodded. "Cannot sleep either," he said. "It happens." She sat down nearby and he continued his work without pressing her to speak. The silence between them was comfortable. It was the first comfortable silence she had experienced in 4 cycles. But it was Captain Noor who confused her most. Rila found her on the bridge one night, alone with the stars. The human woman stared out at the void with an expression Rila could not read. "Why do you do this?" Rila asked. "Travel the dangerous places, answer signals that could be traps. You gain nothing from rescuing people like me." Noor was quiet for a long moment. "I lost my crew once," she said finally. "Years ago, bad situation, no one came for us. I rebuilt after that, built this ship, found these people, and I decided that no one else would call for help and hear only silence, not if I could reach them. Even strangers." "Especially strangers," Noor turned to face her. "The galaxy is vast and cold and indifferent, but we do not have to be. We can choose to answer, we can choose to reach out. That choice is what makes us who we are." Rila did not fully understand, but she wanted to. On the 15th day, everything changed. Yuki burst into the medical bay with alarm in her eyes. "Captain needs you on the bridge, both of you." They found the crew gathered around the communication console. A message was playing, transmitted on official Velani frequencies. "This is Administrator Solon of the Velani Diplomatic Corps. We have received reports that a Velani citizen was recovered from a decommissioned facility. We require immediate transfer of this individual to Velani custody. Compliance is expected. The message ended, the crew looked at Rila. Her blood ran cold. They had found her. The government that had left her to die now wanted her back, probably to silence her, to bury the evidence of what they had done. They cannot have you, Nor said simply. They are my government, Rila's voice shook. They have authority over me. Not here, they do not. Nor's eyes were hard. You are on my ship, you decide what happens to you, no one else. Rila stared at her. No one had ever offered her a choice before. What do I do? She whispered. Whatever you want, Nor put a hand on her shoulder, but know this, we will not let them take you against your will, you have my word. For the first time since her rescue, Rila felt something beyond gratitude. She felt hope. The neutral station called Crosspoint 7 was crowded when the wayward dawn arrived. Word had spread through the trading networks. A human vessel had recovered a Velani survivor from an abandoned station. The Velani government was demanding her return. Everyone wanted to see what would happen next. Rila stood at the viewport and watched the station grow larger. Her hands would not stop trembling. 4 cycles of solitude had not prepared her for this many people, this much attention. She wanted to hide, she wanted to disappear. You do not have to do this, Captain Nor said behind her. You can stay on the ship, we will handle the meeting. Rila considered it. The old Rila, the one who had followed orders and waited patiently for rescue that never came, would have accepted. But she was not that person anymore. No, she said, I need to face them, I need them to see me. The conference room was packed. Representatives from a dozen species had gathered to witness the meeting. The Velani diplomatic vessel had arrived an hour before, and Administrator Solon waited at the far end of the table. He was tall and polished and cold, exactly what Rila expected from her government. She walked in with the wayward Dawn crew at her back. Researcher Rila, Solon began, his voice was smooth and empty. We are relieved to see you alive. This unfortunate situation arose from administrative errors during a period of governmental transition. We deeply regret any hardship you experienced. Any hardship? Rila repeated, her voice sounded strange to her own ears. You left us to die. The evacuation records clearly show. The records are lies. Captain Nor stepped forward. She placed a data chip on the table. Station logs, personal recordings, communication transcripts. Your evacuation ship never arrived. Your government cut contact deliberately. Solon's expression did not change. Internal Velani matters are not subject to outside review. 47 people died, Rila said. The words came out louder than she intended. I watched them die one by one. Kevin went first. He was old and could not handle the rationing. Then Myra and Pell and Sova. Disease took them when the medicine ran out. Then others, some gave up, some fought each other. I buried 12 of them myself. The room had gone silent. I named them, Rila continued. Every single one. I spoke their names every morning so I would not forget. Your records say they were evacuated. Your records say I do not exist, but I am standing here. I survived, and I will not let you erase us. Solon looked at her with barely concealed annoyance. This is unfortunate, but the past cannot be changed. What matters now is returning you to proper Velani care. She has requested asylum, Nor said. Human law recognizes her right to refuse return. Human law has no jurisdiction over Velani citizens. Then arrest her, Nor's voice was ice. Try to take her from my ship, see what happens. The room stirred. Representatives from other species were watching with intense interest. The Velani were known for their isolation, their secrecy. Now their internal failures were exposed for everyone to see. A Taurani delegate stood. Her scaled face showed clear disgust. We will remember how you treat your own people. A Kessin representative joined her. My government will review all agreements with the Velani diplomatic corps. Then another and another. Solon's composure finally cracked. This is interference in internal affairs. There will be consequences. There already are, said a voice from the doorway. Everyone turned. A young Velani stood there wearing civilian clothes rather than government robes. She looked at Rila with something like awe. My name is Tessa, she said. I represent a coalition of citizens who have been investigating government misconduct. We have been searching for proof of what happened to the frontier research stations. You are that proof." Solon's face went pale. "This is unauthorized. You have no standing here." "I have every standing." Tessa walked to Rila and bowed formally. "On behalf of those who never believed the official story, I apologize. You should never have been abandoned, and I promise you the people responsible will answer for what they did." The room erupted in murmurs. Solon tried to regain control, but the damage was done. His government's lies had been exposed before witnesses from across the galaxy. He left without another word. Rila stood in the center of the chaos, overwhelmed. She had expected threats and pressure and cold bureaucratic force. She had not expected allies. She had not expected justice. Captain Nor appeared beside her. "You did well. I do not know what happens now." "Now you choose," Nor smiled. "You can go with Tessa, help her coalition expose the truth, or you can come with us. The void is vast. There are others out there who need help." Rila looked at the crew of the Wayward Dawn, these strange humans who had crossed the darkness to answer her call, who had protected her from her own government, who had given her something she thought she had lost forever. "I know what I want," she said. "I want to stay with you." Nor nodded. "Then welcome to the crew." For the first time in 4 cycles, Rila smiled. 8 months had changed everything. Rila sat at the communications console of the Wayward Dawn, scanning frequencies with practiced ease. Her fingers moved across the controls without hesitation. She knew this ship now. She knew its rhythms and its sounds and the particular way it hummed when the engines were running well. She knew its crew even better. "Picking up something," she announced. "Faint signal, distress frequency coming from the Resin Nebula." Captain Nor looked up from her charts. "The Resin Nebula, that region is supposed to be empty." "Supposed to be," Daisy said from engineering, "just like your station was supposed to be evacuated." Rila smiled. The old pain was still there, but it had transformed into something useful. She understood abandonment now. She understood how easily people could be forgotten, and she refused to let it happen to anyone else. "Can we reach them?" Ogun asked. 12 hours at maximum speed," Yuki calculated the route. "It will burn through our fuel reserves." "Then we refuel after," Nor stood. "Set course, we answer." This was what they did. This was who they were. The galaxy had noticed. News of Rila's rescue and the confrontation at Crosspoint 7 had spread across every network. Other species had begun asking uncomfortable questions about their own abandoned projects, their own forgotten people. The Veleni government had fallen into scandal. Investigations were ongoing. Justice, slow as it was, moved forward. But the Wayward Dawn did not wait for politics. They had answered 14 distress calls in 8 months. 3 were false alarms, 2 were traps that Ogun handled with quiet efficiency. 9 were genuine, 9 ships or stations or outposts where someone was calling into the void, hopping against hope that someone would hear. The humans always heard. Rila had become their specialist. Her experience with isolation, her knowledge of alien protocols, her understanding of what it meant to be forgotten, these things made her invaluable. She could interpret signals that others dismissed as noise. She could recognize desperation in transmission patterns. She could speak to survivors in a way that made them trust. She had found her purpose. The Resin Nebula was beautiful and deadly. Radiation interference played havoc with their sensors. Yuki navigated by instinct and mathematics while Daisy kept the shields calibrated. Rila focused on the signal, filtering through the static until she found it. There, she pointed at the display. Small vessel damaged, 3 life signs. They found the ship drifting in a pocket of calm space. It was a Morin transport built for cargo rather than survival. Something had torn through its hull. The beings inside had sealed themselves in the cockpit with emergency barriers. Ogun and Rila suited up for the rescue. The Morin were small creatures covered in soft brown fur. They looked at the humans with terror in their wide eyes. They had heard stories. Humans were predators. Humans were dangerous. Humans came from a death world where everything wanted to kill everything else. Rila stepped forward. She spoke in the trade language, keeping her voice gentle. "They heard you, they came, you are safe now." The same words that had been spoken to her, the same promise that had saved her life. The Morin stared at her. She was not human. She was Velani, but she moved with the humans, spoke for them, stood beside them without fear. You travel with them, one of the Morin asked, willingly. They saved my life, Rila offered her hand. They will save yours too, that is what they do. The rescue took 2 hours. Priya treated their injuries while Daishi assessed their ship. The damage was too severe for repair, they would need to be transported to the nearest station. The Morin captain kept looking at the human crew with wonder in his eyes. Why, he asked finally, why do you do this? Captain Noor smiled, because the void is cold and silence is heavy, and no one should have to carry that weight alone. Later, when the Morin were settled in guest quarters and the ship was back on course, Rila stood at the observation window. The stars stretched endlessly in every direction. Once that vastness had terrified her, now it felt like possibility. Yuki joined her. Credit for your thoughts. I was thinking about silence. Rila pressed her hand against the glass. It used to mean abandonment, now it means peace. The difference is knowing someone would answer if I called. That is very wise. I had good teachers. The wayward dawn continued on its path. Somewhere out there another signal was waiting, another call for help echoing through the darkness, another person hoping that someone, anyone, would hear. The humans would hear, they always did. And now Rila would hear with them. She recorded a log entry that night, not because anyone required it, not because the records demanded it, but because she wanted to remember. She wanted there to be a record of what she had found, what she had become, what the humans had shown her. They found me when I was forgot. They showed me that no one should be left behind. Now I help them prove it to the galaxy, one signal at a time. The void stretched on forever. But the silence would never win.